Boom, watch fam! What is up, watch fam, and welcome to episode 123 of Ask TNH. I am Christian from Theo and Harris, and today we are going to be talking about a whole lot of Datejusts and why it is that I love them. So before we do, quick wristwatch check. I'm actually not wearing a watch because I'm holding both of the watches I wish I would wear, but I don't want to put them both on because then they'll scratch each other. So I wasn't going to give one preferential treatment over the other, so I'm just going to hold both of these throughout the entire episode. So we have a reference 1601, which is my personal watch. It was my first watch, a blue dial. It's actually an extremely rare color blue, but it's not necessarily better or worse than the darker one, but it is rare. And blue kind of being one of the kings of the Datejust kind of world. It's very subjective, obviously, but there's obviously a lot of public desire for the blue dials. And here we have a classic silver dial. Reference 1601-3. I love the steel engine turn bezel here. Actually, wow, we have two separate, very different watches here. It's a beautiful watch. The custard patina on the hands matches the indices perfectly. Actually, the lume plots perfectly, and the indices have this midnight black color. Obviously, both of these watches are all original. Now let's talk about Datejust and why it is that I love them. So if you do know me, if you do know Theo and Harris, you know I'm extremely passionate about vintage watches as a whole, from chronographs, with value movements, to Omegas, to Hellbros, to alarm watches, to Vulcanes, so many. But without a doubt, for a couple of reasons, and I'll tell you why, Rolex Datejusts are my favorite vintage watches. They are the watches that I will stand behind. I have stood behind since I got one, and will stand behind for the rest of my vintage watch career, and even beyond. Even after I retire, because it's a passion, and I don't see this passion going away anytime soon. So what is it? What is it about the Rolex Datejust that drives me nuts? Okay, so first, these watches are incredibly refined. They're very simplistic. They feature classic 36mm Rolex Oyster cases, which means they are waterproof, although we definitely never recommend diving with any vintage watches. The way it wears on my wrist, I don't have a large wrist, but it's not necessarily small either, but it has a classic size. To me, when I ask someone to give a shot to a 34mm watch, I love them. But with a 36mm watch, it's not take a shot. I mean, 36mm, although that may sound small to modern ears, really isn't. And especially with Rolex cases, because they have so much, so much heft to them, and so much heft and so much just thickness from the lugs to the crystal and everything, it really doesn't wear small. Many vintage watches do, and I have no problem with that. I'll wear a 30mm, Cartier Santos with no sweat at all. But I understand that most people do have size issues with vintage watches. But this watch, all Rolex Datejust, for me, they don't have it at all. A 36mm Oyster case wears very large, and yet still a size that is still vintage, right? It still reminds me of days past, when men and people didn't have to show off as much to know they had something truly beautiful. Available in actually 3 bezel variations, right? There's fluted, which is right here, which is made of white gold. It's kind of the classic Rolex look. Then you have engine turn, which is made of steel, which is, to me, equally beautiful, just different. And it really depends on your taste. At this point in my collectorship, I don't have a preference per se. The fluted is mine. That's kind of why I prefer it on an emotional level. But I got to tell you, every time I take a look at an engine turn bezel, it just becomes more and more appealing. So once again, it's not what's better or worse. It's just a matter of preference. They're valued equally. I mean, everything is basically equal. It's an equal playing field. But with the Datejust game, it's about giving you what you want, because there is so much customization. Of course, you can't customize anything, but there are so many variations out there. And that's my next point. Datejusts were made in incredible variations, from stick hands to wide boys and alpha and dauphine to lume to no lume to different size type font. I mean, these Datejusts have an almost uncountable number of variations. And to me, that is so interesting. Of course, that goes throughout all of Rolex. It can be said for all of Rolex, for Submariners, for Day-Dates, and all of it. But that doesn't change the fact that so many Datejusts are just incredibly unique. And the odds of you running into, another Datejust, exactly the same specifications, is kind of slim and none. Yes, of course, standard silver dial 1601 with fluted bezels. Yes, it's probably the most common, but that doesn't make it, still a common watch. Wearing a vintage Rolex, to me, and because of its versatility, it's one of the most desirable watches, which brings me to kind of my next point. This watch is both sporty and dressy. I don't want to say it's neither sporty nor dressy. It really is both at the same time. It depends on how you want to wear it. But right now I have mine on a crocodile strap from Jean Rousseau, and I have this one here with a more casual look to show some diversity with a strap from T&H, a butterscotch, a bridal leather strap. And just to show you that these watches go so well on a different variation of straps to dress up and down. I would wear this watch maybe today with a crocodile strap and a nice thick sweater, but then this watch has an entirely different feel. I mean, it's the same case, it's the same dial configuration, it's the same everything, right? The color one is not more formal than the other. Maybe blue wave may be a little bit more casual, but it's the idea of the strap changes. It gives you an infinite amount of possibilities. I would wear a Datejust with everything from, shorts and a t-shirt on maybe like a suede strap or a NATO, even if that's your style, to a crocodile strap with a suit. I mean, and to me, that means so much because, although they bring a lot of value, they just aren't cheap. You're still investing in an expensive watch. And if you're going to spend, $3,000, to me, it's very important to be able to, wear the $3,000, to not just, throw it into the wind. And it's another reason why I kind of grew to love my Datejust, because I was able to wear it, so many days a week. And in that, it gives you this opportunity to really kind of bond with it. You're not gonna bond with, like a Piaget Ultra Thin, as much. Of course you can, but as much, because your lifestyle, most likely doesn't warrant it every day. This watch, you could wake up to this watch, go to sleep to this watch, wake up, go to sleep, wake up, go to sleep, wake up, go to sleep, with maybe a few strap changes if necessary. These watches are chronometers. They run at some of the highest Swiss specifications for qualities. These are the kinds of watches that were built to last. Someone bought this one in '77 and it's still perfect. Someone bought this one in '62 and it's still perfect, keeping time within 4 and 6 seconds a day. And then finally, the fact that they are Rolex watches. Yes, on a couple of levels. They are prestigious, and no matter who you are, and some people are haters on that because they are for whatever reason, but there is a level of presumption, but for good reason. It's not an arrogant thing. You're wearing a steel vintage watch. Even if you were wearing a date, I wouldn't judge you personally, but I could say how you could be judged. But these watches are so famous for a reason. I mean, they're iconic. Nothing about this watch or either of these watches is so in your face or so, unique that anyone would recognize it anywhere, right? But the fact that they do anyway, right? Because it is the classic oyster case. I mean, if you look at this watch, apart from the Cyclops, right? Apart from the magnifying, acrylic, nothing about it, is so proprietary, right? Nothing about it is so unique and so, loud, but yet everyone still knows it. It doesn't surprise me when someone notices a Royal Oak that doesn't know watches. It's that octagon watch with the bracelet, But when you see something like this, something so simple and so refined, and something without frills, really, when you see something like this that has that kind of market, recognition, that means a lot. That means that something was done very, very right with this watch in a very subtle way. So yes, the Rolex Datejust, whether it's a reference 1601, 1603, 013, 014, there's so many references. These vintage Rolex Datejusts are absolutely, I can say this with confidence, my favorite watches, whether in blue or silver or fluted or engine turned. I am absolutely in love with the Rolex Datejust, and I hope that my conversation here helped you fall a little bit more in love with the Datejust. Because it's all about sharing, right? Thank you guys so much for watching episode 123 of Ask T&H. Have a great day.